Hey guys, I'm so excited for you to listen to this week's episode with the incredible Ann Grossman. I love talking with Ann. She is fierce. She was really honest and vulnerable, sharing her personal story growing up with her dad as her coach. She's a total boss lady, and I think that she's an inspiration to many coaches and players. She's doing an awesome job with the WTCA, and she shared with us what really motivates her to continue to grow the WTCA. She had great advice for anyone working with female players, which is probably all of us out there. And honestly, this advice not only applies to females, I think it also applies to male players. So I have no doubt that you will absolutely enjoy this conversation. This is our 33rd episode here at Vita Tennis. It really is incredible to me because I just started this podcast in March, and honestly, I wasn't sure that I was going to be recording these many episodes and get to talk with all these amazing people in the industry. Make sure you check out our other episodes. They're all different and cover diverse topics that are specific to our industry. You can look on your podcast platform or just go to our website at www.vitatennispodcast.com to check out all of those other episodes. I wish that more and more coaches get to listen to these type of conversations. So please, let's grow together. Leave a review on the platform or share an episode with someone you think will enjoy it. Vita Tennis is also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube if you want to share our content through there. Get ready to learn from one of the best out there, only here at Vita Tennis. Enjoy! Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vita Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. Today, I am excited to talk with Ann Grossman, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Women's Tennis Coaching Association. The WTCA is the only professional global organization solely in support of coaches working with female tennis players and with the vision of raising the level of coaching in women's tennis. Ann has coached professional tennis players as high as 150 on the tour, and she has an incredible professional tennis playing background. She competed for over a decade on the tour and achieved a WTA singles ranking of 29 and doubles ranking of 31, with wins over Martina Navratilova, Jo Fernandez, and Zina Garrison. She's originally from Columbus, Ohio. Welcome, Ann, to Vita Tennis. Did I get all of that right? Are you from Columbus?
Yes, I am from Columbus, Ohio. Actually, outside of Columbus, a small town called Grove City.
Okay. My husband's from Columbus. So I remember I saw that somewhere and I was like, no way.
Oh, nice.
So you are by far the best player we've had on this podcast. Such an incredible playing background. But how did you get into coaching? Because that's a very different world. And how was that transition for you?
Well, it was quite interesting because in 1998, my husband is Eric Wunderlich. He swam on the 96 Olympic team. And after the games, we got married in 97. And then he traveled with me for like a year and a half on the pro tour. And then he's like, I need to get a job. There's like certain things that were happening on tour that he didn't see eye to eye with. And that was really hard for him. And so I continued to play. And then I was like kind of really missing him and decided to retire at the end of 1998. And so he was actually interning at USA Swimming because obviously naturally for him to just go into like the swimming side of it. And he was interning for $300 a week. And I was like, oh my gosh, the money that I had saved from playing, I didn't want to touch it. And obviously the easiest thing for me to do was to go into teaching tennis. And because he was based out of Colorado Springs. And so the Broadmoor was there, and which is an unbelievable, beautiful facility. And I knew Dennis Ralston. And so I called up Dennis and I was like, listen, I actually still could have been playing on tour with my ranking, but I don't know. I felt like I played 11 years. I had an unbelievable career. I wanted to go out like everybody respecting me as well. So Dennis was like, yeah, I would love to have you teach here. And then, so that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you immediately like coaching? What kind of players were you working with?
Well, the funny thing is about Dennis Ralston, for those that know him, is like, he was very, very tough on me. He was like, Ann, just because you're a former player doesn't mean that you know how to coach or you know how to teach. And
Yeah.
so he made me start at the bottom. And not only at the bottom with just obviously with kids that are 4 or 5 years old, but also with adults. I taught everybody. I didn't go right into just coaching like players that were top 10 in the world. So like that would come to visit him. So it's just like, he really, really made me fight for it. And so I think that's why I became a great coach, is because I learned from the very bottom, like on starting beginners, right? And building the player. So I was really into loving them, building the player, no matter if they were a junior or if they were adult. I always believe that even if you're 80 years old, you can still get better.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think that's so important. And the most challenging thing when you're just starting to coach is to learn how to break it down for somebody that doesn't know how to play. I think high performance players or high level players all talk the same language and can speak to each other about technique or strategy. But when you have to really break it down to the nitty gritty, to the smallest of details, and not just teach it, but also do it in a way where the person's actually learning and having fun. I think that I mean, when you start, you have no idea. And I love that you did that you worked with all the different ages and all the different groups. How long were you doing that before you started working with better players?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I would say that I developed on my players. It wasn't that I just jumped right into like coaching like great players. It's like every player that I've had, I literally like started them when they were really young and developed them like to later on. So yeah. I think that's a challenge of being a female coach, is like that we don't really have I don't know what the word is. It's like, I just feel like I developed Francesca Di Lorenzo from 10 years old. And I got her to 118 in the world. And with my playing background, with my coaching on how I took a complete beginner to that level, she was number one NCAA player in the country. She won the NCAA in doubles. She was 11 in the world, ITF junior. You know, I would have like walked into another opportunity as a coach, but that just doesn't happen so much on being a female coach. You just don't get that many opportunities. That the females gravitate mainly towards male coaches. And this is why I think that I think these female players are really missing the opportunity to work with great female coaches, because I feel like we have so much more to offer than a male coach.
Also, I think, I don't know if we just see it more now because we're all in each other's business with social media, but I think it was like that even when I was growing up, that junior players change coaches constantly. So there's rarely a coach that has been with a player throughout their teenage years, or, you know, even from before.
That's because the coach hasn't played maybe at that level, and they can only take that player so far. And so that's what happened to me when I was in Ohio. Is like, I remember my dad saying, you know, I was beating all the boys. I wasn't able, you know, I was beating the girls, I was beating the boys. And he was like, you need to move on. I got offered a full scholarship to go down to the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy when I was 12 years old. So I took that opportunity. And the thing is that I had this crazy story. Is my first coach that was coaching me, and my dad like was asking him to work with me on something. And the coach literally said, oh, my arm is hurting. And then there was these back tennis courts in the indoor center. And my dad went back there to like look for a court to feed me balls. And he saw my coach working with another player. And that was really, really hurtful, because that was just a sign right there saying, I can't take Ann any farther. So he didn't have the ability to continue to work on and to work with me. And I think that's a lot what happens, and why people change coaches, is because they've just taken them so far, and they really don't know what it's like maybe to take them to that next level, which that's okay. Like I mean, you know, some people are unbelievable at the beginning and developing them, and then that's all they know, and that's their niche. So we need those people too. So it's not that they failed. It's just that they did the best they can to get them to get that, to get them there.
Absolutely. So what would be your main advice for coaches working with little girls, let's say 10 and under? Do you have any advice for those coaches that are just working on the, developmental side?
Oh, I mean, there's so much. I mean, that's a really broad question there. But I mean, for me, what I do is that I just break everything down, and I really am very specific on their technique, on getting them to. I always have a vision for what what I want them to look like if they were a professional. So that's what I saw for Francesca when I started at 10 years old. I knew that exactly did it go exactly according to what I wanted? No, because there was a few speed bumps in the way on the some of the years that I worked with her, that I wasn't able to work with her full time. And so that got derailed, and her game went kind of a little bit of a different direction. But I mean, for me, with girls, number one is that you have to have fun with them. You have to want to keep them in the game and really show the passion that you really care for them, because they're going to sense that. They're going to know that. And so, having fun is so important. And then I would say girls are super competitive, right? They want to get it right. They're perfectionists as well. So, what I focus on is the technique. And so I'm very detail oriented on every little thing of every little stroke. When they're that young, they can handle it. But the thing is that I kind of go by their age also, is how long that they can focus. So if they're 10 years old, I can say, okay, they can focus 10 minutes maybe on their forehand, 10 minutes on the volley. I kind of go by the age on that side. And obviously, for a 10-year-old, they're not going to really have an hour lesson maybe. Francesca did. She was able to do that. So it kind of just depends on their attention span on that side.
I think technique is so important, especially if you're lucky enough to get to play at that young age. Unfortunately, I didn't start playing until I was 11. I wish I started earlier, but I think that's the foundation, right, to your whole life as a tennis player. So I think it is really important to work on technique and obviously to have fun. And I think that it's a fine balance. It can be difficult, not so much for coaches, but I think for parents. Some parents are a little bit too intense. And I feel that they're just so worried about even competition. And before 10 years old, to me, it's kind of pointless. But maybe you disagree with that. I don't know from what you have seen developing these really great players. Obviously it changes from player to player, but overall, what do you think is a really good age for kids to start competing?
Honestly, I kind of stay out of that, because it's up to the family on what they can afford and how much the girl likes to compete. I want to make my player a world-class decision maker. And so I've got two boys. I have a son that plays college golf, and I have my next son plays college tennis. And I always gave them the option if they wanted to play. They had to show me what they wanted to play. And I think as far as the parents, if you have a really good coach, then the parents aren't going to be that tough or demanding, because you have to show really listen, I know what I'm doing here. You need to trust the process of the coach. And I feel maybe sometimes coaches let parents kind of run all over them, but I kind of I've never really had that many problems with any parents, because I show them that I'm the boss, and I know exactly, they just immediately see me, and I'm just I'm not going to mess with Ann. She knows what she's doing. So I don't know. I just that's just what it's been for me. So I guess I can be sometimes intimidating, but to play at the level that I played at, the best in the world, I beat the best in the world, not only those names, but I beat 5 world number ones, Tracy Austin, Sabatini, Jana Novotna, Conchita Martinez, and it's just so my demeanor comes off maybe a little bit that I'm intimidating or something, but it's just to play at that highest level, it's I kind of have to have that little edge, so I guess I've just kind of carried that on through my coaching. So
Yeah. And I like that. World-class decision makers. That's really tough though, because kids don't always know what's best for them. So how do you encourage a young kid, even a teenager, to be a world-class decision maker?
Ask them questions. What do they want?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to constantly ask questions. And why are they here? What do they want? I mean, obviously 10 years old is pretty young, but you can still ask them those questions. They still have dreams. I mean, I know I was dreaming out of the window when I was young and what I wanted in my life. Did I really think that I was going to be a professional? Not really, because my dad was so tough on me and he always like reverted to the past on how I was better when I was younger. And he kind of abused me verbally. So, but I really think like for me, the best advice that I have for parents is like, you know, just try not to say too much because the kids are smart. Sometimes I feel like parents, like they're showing their securities on what they're talking about. I don't know if I can explain this right? But anyway, I don't know. Like, I just think that like sometimes parents are trying to over being a parent instead of just like being there, loving them, giving them the opportunity, right? That's what I really think that they should do is like, they're obviously providing these lessons for these kids and this opportunity. So like, let that carry on instead of maybe them getting involved so much. But the thing is that if I didn't have my dad, I wouldn't have been where I was. So
exactly.
Yeah. So it's just like, but my dad abused me. And so I think I would have been so much better if my dad didn't do that side to me. Okay, that you want to go out, you want to work with me, but like, don't abuse me, you know? So it's a fine line. I love having parents out on the court with me because I want them to see what their child is going through on the court, because I guarantee you, like, they'll be like, oh, I get it. Like, okay, this is what you're working on. All right.
Yeah. I think coaches tend to get annoyed with parents being on the court, being too overbearing. But it's tough because they ultimately want what's best for their kid. And as a young kid or even as a teenager, and as their parent, as an adult, I'm not a parent, but I'm just guessing, it's almost like you feel that you know what's best for them, even more than what they might think that is best for them, right? So I just find that interaction very interesting because a kid, sometimes if it was up to a kid, they would stay at home watching TV or playing video games, right? So it's such a tough balance of knowing when to push and when to pull. So I think it's an art almost.
No, absolutely. And it's just like, but you're going to see that in your child and what they really want. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. Like, definitely for sure. My dad got me up on Saturday morning and I was on the court by 8 a.m. I mean, that was all his doing, right? I guarantee you that I probably wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. What do you think is key to your success from the way that, I don't know if your dad coached you or he was your coach?
Yeah. I mean, my dad read Vic Braden books like every single night. He's the one that really gave me an unbelievable foundation. I did have a coach that I worked with, but it was just like, I really never had privates when I was really young. I was more in like a group setting of like 2 other people. Mm-hmm. So, and he really gave me that foundation, and I hit a ton against the wall. I hit a lot of balls against the wall. I grew up on a farm, so I hit against the barn wall.
I was just talking about this with someone because I did the same thing, by the way. I started really late. And I was obsessed with the wall. And I say obsessed, I don't say that lightly. It was like after practice, I would go there for hours. Before practice, in between matches, all I did was hit against the wall and trying to hit a number of balls in a row. And it was like obsessive. I mean, I think maybe I had issues.
Awesome.
But I loved it. And it bums me out that a lot of facilities now don't even have a wall. I think it's kind of been lost. I don't see kids hitting against a wall because most of the time there's not even a wall. I mean, I don't know if you kind of see the same thing.
No, I know. No, I have to say that they're definitely, obviously it's a lot of space to have a wall. So like these indoor facilities that they've taken them down, which is really, really, really sad about on that side, because the wall is the best thing. I mean, I think so many people probably saw that Roger Federer has a wall at his house.
Yeah.
So I literally hit like 3 hours a night, every single night against the wall.
Wow. What was your record? Do you remember?
When I think I was 11 years old, and it was in the barn where it was like very narrow. And my dad put 2 pieces of plywood up against the wall and it was like dirt. And I had to hit the ball just perfectly for it to come back to me. So it was 1200 was my record.
Wow.
And so it was funny because my son, when we moved down to Florida, there's cement walls for like racquetball here in Florida. And so he couldn't wait to beat my record, because I would say, oh, I made it 1200 times. So he got to like 1300 times at like my same age. And he was so proud of that. He had to just like, break it. So that was his determination. But I always had him warm up, start against the wall, even though I never made him hit 3 hours. My dad made me do that. Ty, my son, it would be like 30 minutes before we'd go on the court with each other. So if he wanted to hit more, that was his choice. So I left it up to him.
Yeah. And what about any advice for coaches that are working with more advanced players? And let's say with females, since that's what the WTCA is about. And obviously we're going to talk about that here in a bit.
General advice? That's pretty general. I mean, like, I just think
anything that you're passionate about.
For me, it's just like really like being there for them, showing how much I care. I think the biggest thing with working with females is really just showing how much you care. You got to have that passion and really enjoy working with them. So I guess that's like pretty general.
And what about when you were on the tour? Is there anything that you wish somebody had told you when you were in the height of your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, well, number one is my dad died when I was 32 in the world. And, he was my bread and butter. And so I didn't really have anybody really in my corner, like fighting hard for me. And I feel like those are some of the greatest coaches that are there. They'll do anything for you. And you can just really feel that, how much they care. And I just felt like I never really had that. And nobody really told me and gave me the belief that I was able to go farther than 29 in the world. And I feel like obviously I lost my dad, but even like, I just didn't have that support system. So I think like females really need that like strong support system behind them, and knowing that you can do it. You can achieve anything you want in the world. And so that's what I wish that I would have had. And it's funny because Arantxa Sanchez Vicario is a very good friend of mine. And she told me, she's like, Ann, you were just as good as us. You just need to do a couple of things better. And I'm like, well, what were they? Like, nobody told me that, So now looking back, and like my oldest son was right there when she said that. And I was just like, I was so shocked because I didn't really believe that I was like at the highest level, being like top 5 in the world. So nobody really like gave me that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that earlier on you were at Bollettieri. How long were you there?
I went there 6th grade through 10th grade, but my 6th, 7th, and 8th and 9th grade, I was there 2nd semester. And then my 10th grade year, I was there a full year. And then I turned pro when I was 17 years old. So I'm really grateful to Nick because I was able to leave Grove City. I grew up on a farm. It was super tough. Even though my parents wanted me to remain like a normal like childhood, coming home, having friends, and still kind of like having that balance, I think that was really great for me. And yeah, I mean, I had a super tough upbringing. And so in some ways, Nick's really saved me on that side. But that was no cupcake being there. That was really, really tough as well.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you if you had any feelings. I mean, now probably even Bollettieri's and IMG is probably completely different from the way because it's so much bigger, right? From the way it was when you were there. But how do you feel about these big academies and these big places that attract so many players? And obviously there's a lot of benefits to it. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that side?
It all depends on what you want.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like everybody, all these different places have something super special on what they're great at. And so obviously you're going to those academies for that. So I can't really like specifically speak for me. I had a full scholarship and I was able to play with so many different players because at that time, like there was incredible players that were all there and us like competing against each other every single day. That was unbelievable. I mean, I was there with like Agassi and Jim Courier and David Wheaton and Martin Blackman. And on the female side was Carleen Bassett and Jill Hetherington and Lisa Pamatuan. I mean, the list is Marianne Wardell. I mean, the list is
That's
insane.
amazing.
Rafaela Reggie. I mean, there's so many girls there. Michelle Torres. I mean, Terry Phelps. These were all girls that were like top in the country. They were older than me. So I looked up to them. Yeah. And it was incredible atmosphere. And I think that just drove me every day to like want to get better.
Yeah. And did you ever consider playing college? Or was it, you always thought that, professional is the way to go?
No, honestly, my dad had just instilled in my head that I was playing for a college scholarship. My dad took the sport in college. He went to Ohio State University, and that was in the 70s, like when tennis hit the scene really big. And that's how he got into tennis. And that's when I was like 4.5 years old, 1974. So that's really all that I was playing. And I'll never forget this, is that a lot of girls that were younger than me were playing professional tournaments. And my dad's like, absolutely not. You're not playing a pro tournament. You've never even won a national. But I was like, when I was 12 years old, I was 11 in the United States. And then in the 14s, well, I continued up a great path. And then when I was in the 16s, I was ranked 4 in the country, my first year 16s, and he still wouldn't let me play. And then I played up in the 18s when I was 16 years old, because everybody below me was playing up in the 18s. And I won the clay court nationals when I was 16 years old. And then I won the super nationals back to back, and then the international grass courts. So by winning the 18 nationals, I got a wild card in the main draw of the US Open. So I literally just earned my first professional tournament that I ever played in. So
wow.
he was very, I don't know, he was very tough on me that way. And I really never dreamed, like you hear like players saying, oh, I dreamed, of me holding the trophy. I never really dreamed that, because I think growing up on a farm in the tough conditions that I came from, like nobody thought that was possible. And so, and plus, financially, I didn't have the financial means. Super tough, right? So, I mean, at one stage we didn't have heater water in our house. So yeah, I just I don't know. My dad was just going to be happy with the scholarship.
Yeah. No, I get that. And
I think that's where it really hurt me, because I think maybe if I was able to dream and my dad not put his insecurities into me, that's what held me back. That's what I was trying to say before. It's like, why, I can't even explain what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry.
No, I think I get you, that he basically only saw you gain so far, right? So, and he probably just didn't even have those dreams, to be fair. And then that's reflected on you and the way you see yourself and what you see yourself accomplishing. I think we all need somebody to see bigger and better things for us than we see for ourselves when we're growing up. I think that is important. I think
and that's our job as coaches, is to be able to okay, you're serving right now, you're practicing your serve. Like the girl that I work with right now, I say, okay, she says she doesn't want to be a professional. She's 14 years old and she wants to go to a great university and become a lawyer. But I still say, okay, you're serving, it's 40-15, 6-5 in the third on center court at Wimbledon to win the match. Even though that is not what she wants out of tennis, I still want her to feel what that's like, and that honestly, anything is possible, right? So I want to instill in her, and that I don't want to just hold her back oh, this is the only thing that you want. Just dream big.
Absolutely. And I think even, I mean, there's already been some players that have played college or maybe do a year or two in college and then they go on to play professional. Do you have any specific way you feel about pursuing that, maybe doing college and then pro? Do you think that it's too difficult?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I think like a lot of the pathway right now, especially in boys, but is going to school, and it also gives you like, I have to say, I mean, I turned pro at 17 years old. I had an amazing career. I played 40 major draw grand slams. Like, I mean, I was super solid. But I have to say, like, my husband went to Michigan, and I always was like, oh, you went to Michigan. He's like, yeah, but you were traveling the world like and getting paid for it. I wasn't, he made no money swimming at the University of Michigan. And even when he was on the Olympic team. So, but I still like, it's still in your back pocket, like by having that university experience and like having that kind of family saying, oh, this is where I went to school. I think that just really helps you as an overall person. And because I feel like it still haunts me a little bit. Like I don't have a university to associate myself with, So, but the thing is that I turned pro when I was 17. I still had 2 more years left of high school. And it just was the right thing for me to do. I was top 75 in the world. And that was my dad. He was like, listen, you're not turning pro unless you know that you can get into every Grand Slam and you're able to support yourself. So I think that girls turn pro way too soon when they're not ready. And then they get themselves in a little bit of a pickle on that side. So that's just my opinion on that side.
That's really interesting. And now let's get into some conversation about the WTCA. How did that come about? I know it was basically you and Sarah, right, that founded the WTCA, but maybe for listeners that might not be familiar with it, how did that come about, and what's the goal? What's your why?
Well, for one thing, Sarah approached me. She had the idea. And then for the WTCA, she's like, do you want to come along and like start this with me? I was like, yeah, sure. I'd love to. And I came up with the idea on having conferences just because of my background, because of everybody that I know in the industry. And I just felt like, you know what? I want to provide the best information out there for coaches. I want to get the best of the best to come and present at our conferences. So that's how really it started on that side. And that's always been kind of like my mission, because for me, I'm a life learner. I'm constantly like wanting to know who is the best, like who's the best coach in serving, who's the best in this. Like I'm always searching because I want to learn myself to keep bettering myself. So that's just always been the way I am as a person and for me as a coach, because I don't know everything, and everything is always evolving on how it's, the ball is being hit on the mental side. Like I want to be right there and keep learning. So that's basically like what we've started. And then just like, and right now, like I really want to get more female coaches out there coaching on the pro tour and also off of the pro tour, because I think these girls, actually a player just came out and said like she hired a female coach and it's helped her so much. Like she's able to really have deep conversations with this coach. And I kind of think I figured out something on why girls don't have female coaches. And this is on my side, what I learned. So my mom was a school teacher, and then she stopped teaching school. And because being married to a farmer, you had to like take the food out to the fields and you have to run parts. And if something breaks down, so she like gave up teaching. And then like when my dad was working with me, I always saw like a little bit of weak side of my mom. Like sometimes she wouldn't stick up for me if my dad was being super hard on me. So I kind of looked at her as weak. I know that's probably not great to say, but like what I noticed is that the girls that have like female coaches, they have strong, like the girl that I'm working with right now, her mom is a lawyer. She's a strong mom. So this is just a little bit of what I think. I'm like, I wish I would have had a female coach when I was playing, but I think I didn't have a great role model. And so I think that's why there's maybe not as many girls that are working with female coaches, is because they've never really had a great role model as a female. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And we definitely need more out there. Do you think that that's the main reason why there's not a lot of female coaches on the tour? I mean, it's just so sad to see. I mean, there's just not that many.
No, I mean, I think maybe in the top 100 right now, there's maybe like 5.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I don't really believe that they're like, oh, the guy can hit with me because I can still hit an amazing ball. And I'm 53 years old. Well, 53 on Friday, but anyway. So I don't really believe that. And plus now at tournaments, they have hitters all the time for the girls to hit with. So I think that's a little bit of a cop out on that side. But I mean, I just don't think maybe that they're used to maybe like a female really holding them accountable on really what they want. I think sometimes we can like kind of like maybe play it a little bit and want sympathy from a male and get away with a few of the things that we want, right?
I totally get it. And back to the WTCA. So what are some of the things that are coming up? Why should coaches join? Really just tell us about all the work that you're doing with the WTCA.
Well, we're continuing to grow tremendously right now. We have awesome momentum, but the Women's Tennis Coaching Association is a warm, welcoming, and inclusive community of coaches, tennis coaches, players, and enthusiasts from around the world. Our goal is to empower female athletes through cutting edge and relevant education, personal mentorship, deep connection, and inclusion to become successful coaches and leaders in the sport.
Do you have anything that's coming up? Any conferences coming up soon?
Right now, we're in restructuring a little bit on exactly when our conferences are going to be. We actually just had a meeting this morning for next year on what we want to do. So, but we do have a webinar that's coming up with Jim Fannin for all members. It's free to them. He's a zone coach. He's worked with like 2,000 athletes and he's absolutely incredible. And he actually worked with me when I was younger, when I was like 16, 17 years old. So we're having this free webinar on November 2nd.
Oh, nice. Then you're talking about being a lifelong learner, which I really believe in. Obviously, this is why I'm doing a podcast, is to create something for coaches to listen to on their way to work, or that maybe they can learn from hearing from a fellow pro that has been doing this for years. And I think that in my experience, when I've been to conferences, and I just talked about this on a different podcast with USDA Florida, that it's like always the same people, right? Always the same people, always kind of the same stuff being covered. So I didn't know if with the WTCA, are you like making it a point basically to bring in different people and different things that are going on and, more of the high performance side?
I mean, if you look at our list of speakers, it's insane. And very rarely do we have the same speaker speaking twice. I mean, it's been insane. Mary Pierce spoke, Lindsay Davenport, Catherine Alday. She always speaks because she was Billie Jean King Cup, captain. So then she would always give us the latest details. But I mean, Billie Jean King came and spoke, right? It's like I try to constantly have new innovative people coming in and speaking all the time. O'Shaughnessy has spoken, so he came in once. Mark Kovacs, like it's our list is insane. So I think that's where we're different, is because it's not the same people. I want the best of the best coming to speak.
Yeah. And just another last general question for you. I know you don't like my general questions. It's okay. But is there anything that you would like to see change in the tennis coaching industry?
I mean, I think I would love to just be in everybody more inclusive together, and for people to be there more for each other on the tennis coaching on that side. I feel like it's really cutthroat, and sometimes that's just not really that enjoyable. And I don't know. That's just my opinion on that side. Maybe people might not think it's that way, but for me, looking in, I feel like people really don't want you to succeed, So sometimes they're looking to really cut you down and not being so supportive. So that's where I feel like our association is different. The mission statement that I just read you, all inclusive. We want everybody. We want parents. I think that is the most important thing, is for parents to join and to learn, because they're the ones that are there for their child, and they need to be educated on so many different parts of what goes on in the tennis world and on the court, playing wise, everything. So we want it to be fun, right? Like, let's just have more fun and be there for people and not be like, so competitive with each other.
Yeah. And again, that's another reason why I'm doing this podcast, is because that's exactly how I feel. And, I not only do I think that there's a lot of pros that we can learn from and we can share information. It's like, how are we helping the sport by keeping everything to ourselves? Right. And always hearing from the same people at conferences. That's not helping anybody. Right. We need to share the spotlight. We need to, like you said, be more inclusive and just, share knowledge. Right. Because especially someone like you that has so much experience and has seen tennis at a level that not a lot of coaches get to see. It's so important. So I'm so thankful that you're here today talking to us and we can learn from you. So I think it's extremely valuable. And then before I let you go, I just have one more question for you. I always ask this at the end, is what has been the Grand Slam moment and the double bagel moment of your coaching career? Obviously, you've had some literal Grand Slam moments, but maybe on the coaching side, some highlights and some lows.
I would say that I started a female in 8th grade in the winter. And then by her junior year of high school, she won a state doubles title. And I mean, she'd only been playing look, how many years? Like 3.5 years. And I feel like she'd never picked up a racket. And that was honestly amazing for me. Yeah. So, and look, I've played on the center court at Wimbledon, which was absolutely amazing, right? But for me, coaching to get that player to win that state doubles title, that's something that she'll never ever forget. She always will have that. Yeah. And I'm really proud of myself for getting her there, because that's not easy. Everybody knows how difficult that is. And so I feel like that is even though I've taken players from starting to the highest level to play in Grand Slams, to me, that was just unbelievable. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And what about a double bagel moment?
The double bagel moment was probably when I played Martina Navratilova, after I turned pro, one of my next big tournaments that I played. I lost to her 0-0 in 50 minutes in Washington, D.C. in front of 10,000 people on Supreme, the Supreme fastest court. Back in the day, we played on the Supreme court that was so slick. It just suited her game perfectly, not my game. And it was brutal. That was definitely a massive double bagel. I just kept looking at the clock going, please go slower. Because, I wanted to stay out there, but she was just unbelievable. So, I think I was
literal double bagel.
That was literally a double bagel. Sorry, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine that.
The thing is that the last time I played her, I beat her. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Oh my goodness. And well, thank you so much. We'll make sure to put all the links to the WTCA and all that in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
You're awesome. Thank you so much for having me and providing this opportunity for people to listen.
Of course. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Vida Tennis. By the way, the webinar that Ann was talking about for November 2nd got moved to December 1st, so make sure to look out for that and to register for the WTCA. Let me know what you think of this episode or any of our other episodes by emailing me to vidatennispodcast@gmail.com. I will see you next week for another awesome conversation, and please remember to review the podcast. It helps more than you realize. Thank you.